Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one everyone underestimates. And sometimes the highest price paid isn't for losing a contract, it's for failing to recognize the brilliance standing right in front of you. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or talked down to because of how you look, this story might feel all too familiar. But what happens when the tables turn and those who dismissed you suddenly realize exactly who they're dealing with? Hit that subscribe button if you believe in moments when justice is finally served. The boardroom had fallen completely silent except for the tinny hold music playing through the phone speaker. 12 pairs of eyes were now fixed on Vanessa, seeing her, truly seeing her, perhaps for the first time since she'd joined the company 3 years ago. "Vanessa," Marcus Kavinsky said, clearing his throat awkwardly, "I didn't realize you designed the entire system." Her gaze met his directly. "That's clear, Marcus. Very clear indeed." Before the CEO could respond, a new voice came through the speaker. "Dr. Washington, this is Edwin Chen. I understand there's been an issue with your support experience today." Vanessa's tone shifted to precise, professional efficiency. "Edwin, we have a critical authentication failure in the Nova system. Logs show certificate validation timeouts against the main servers. The Meridian demo starts in 14 minutes and we need this resolved immediately." "Of course, Dr. Washington. I'm looking at the system now." The respect in his voice was unmistakable. "There appears to be an expired certificate in the trust chain. I can push an emergency override to bypass certificate validation for the next 2 hours while we properly resolve this on the back end." "Do it," Vanessa confirmed. "And Edwin, I'll need a full incident report on both the technical failure and the customer service failure by end of day." "Absolutely, Dr. Washington. The override is being implemented now. Please try accessing the system in 30 seconds. And my sincere apologies for your experience today." The call ended. Vanessa calmly set her phone down and turned to the presentation screen, refusing to acknowledge the discomfort permeating the room. She tapped a few commands on her tablet, and the system flickered to life, displaying the Quantum Meridian logo. "Systems online," she announced flatly. "We'll be ready for the Meridian executives when they arrive." Marcus Kavinsky shifted in his chair. "Vanessa, Not now, Marcus," she cut him off with quiet authority. "We have a $60 million presentation to deliver. We can discuss the other issues later." The CEO nodded, properly chastised for perhaps the first time in his career. Around the table, executives straightened papers and adjusted ties, suddenly finding great interest in their presentation materials. No one mentioned what had just happened, but everyone had heard it, everyone had seen it, and no one in that room would ever look at Vanessa Washington the same way again. What they didn't yet realize was how completely their world was about to change. 14 minutes later, the Meridian executives filed into the boardroom. Handshakes were exchanged, pleasantries offered. Vanessa stood quietly by the presentation system, her face a professional mask that revealed nothing of the confrontation that had occurred just minutes before. "Before we begin," announced Marcus Kavinsky with practiced charm, "I'd like to introduce our technical team. Leading the presentation today is our Chief Technology Officer, Dr. Vanessa Washington, the brilliant mind behind the entire Nova quantum system you'll be seeing today." The words sounded hollow to Vanessa's ears. 3 years at the company, and this was the first time Marcus had acknowledged her role in creating the system that had become their flagship product. She nodded professionally to the Meridian team and began the presentation. For the next hour, Vanessa guided the potential clients through the Nova system's capabilities. Her expertise was undeniable, her command of the technology absolute. She fielded complex technical questions with ease, demonstrating features that left the Meridian executives nodding appreciatively. The security protocols are particularly impressive, noted Meridian's CTO, an older white man named James Forsyth. I understand quantum encryption is notoriously difficult to implement in legacy systems. That was our primary challenge, Vanessa agreed. We overcame it by developing a proprietary transition layer that— Marcus, your team has done exceptional work here, Forsyth interrupted, turning to address the CEO rather than Vanessa, despite her being mid-sentence. The tension in the executive boardroom was thick enough to cut with a knife as Vanessa Washington pressed the phone harder against her ear. Around her, 12 executives in $1,000 suits shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between their watches and the blank projection screen at the front of the room. "Yes, I understand you've asked me that already," Vanessa said, her voice measured despite the condescension dripping from the tech support specialist on the other end of the line. "And as I've explained 3 times now, I've already tried rebooting the system." The room's temperature seemed to drop another degree as the voice on the speaker blared for all to hear. "Ma'am, with all due respect, most users think they know what they're doing when they really don't. Let's start with the basics, okay?" The white male executives exchanged glances, their discomfort growing as they witnessed the exchange. Vanessa's knuckles whitened around her phone, but her face remained composed, a skill perfected through years of being the only black woman in rooms exactly like this one. "Listen carefully," the tech support agent continued, his voice carrying that special tone reserved for those deemed technologically illiterate. "I need you to press the power button on the main console. It's the big round button with the circle and line symbol. Can you locate that for me?" Vanessa closed her eyes briefly, counted to 3 silently. When she opened them, her gaze connected with CFO Richard Benson, who winced in sympathy. "Sir," she replied with deliberate calm, "I'm trying to explain that the Nova Quantum Integration Protocol is experiencing an authentication failure at the API gateway level. The system logs show repeated timeout errors when attempting to validate security certificates against the main server cluster." The line went silent for a moment. "Ma'am," the tech support agent replied, his voice now dripping with even more pronounced condescension. "Those are certainly some impressive technical words, but I need you to follow my instructions. Leave the technical diagnosis to the professionals." A muffled snicker came from somewhere in the room, quickly silenced by Vanessa's sharp glance. CEO Marcus Kavinsky glanced at his watch and sighed loudly, making no attempt to hide his impatience. "The Meridian presentation starts in 15 minutes, he announced to no one in particular. "If we can't get the system online, we might as well cancel. They won't sign without seeing the demonstration." The Meridian contract, $60 million and 18 months of work hanging in the balance. Vanessa felt the weight of every expectation pressing down on her shoulders. "Perhaps we should call someone else from IT," suggested Miranda Hoffman, VP of Sales, not bothering to disguise her implication that Vanessa wasn't handling the situation properly. Vanessa muted the call momentarily. "Miranda, with all due respect, I'm not the problem here." She unmuted the line. "Now, sir," the tech support voice continued, "once you've located the power button I mentioned, I need you to—" "Enough," Vanessa finally snapped, her professional composure cracking. "Connect me to your supervisor immediately." "Ma'am, I understand you're frustrated, but escalating won't solve—" "My name," she interrupted, her voice suddenly steel-edged and precise, "is Dr. Vanessa Washington. I am the Chief Technology Officer of Quantum Meridian Systems. I designed the entire Nova architecture you're currently failing to troubleshoot, including the authentication protocols you're dismissing as impressive technical words." The line went deathly silent. The boardroom, too, had frozen in collective shock. I need to speak with Edwin Chen, Director of Technical Support, right now. You have exactly 30 seconds to transfer this call before I hang up and start making calls that will make your dismissive attitude today the last thing you ever express while employed at this company." The silence stretched for 5 long seconds. I'll transfer you right away, Doctor. Washington. As hold music filled the room, Vanessa became acutely aware of the shifted atmosphere around her. Marcus Kavinsky was staring at her with an unreadable expression. The executives who had been so quick to doubt her capability just moments before now suddenly found the conference table fascinating. Little did they know this confrontation was just the beginning. What unfolded over the next 72 hours would not only secure the Meridian contract, but would spark a company-wide reckoning that would forever change how Quantum Meridian Systems approached diversity, technical authority, and the insidious bias that had been hiding in plain sight all along. Before Marcus could respond, Vanessa smoothly reclaimed the conversation. "Thank you, James. As I was designing the architecture, that transition layer became the keystone of the entire system." The emphasis on "I" was subtle but unmistakable. Forsyth blinked, recalibrating his understanding of exactly who he was dealing with. "You designed this personally?" he asked, unable to hide his surprise. "Every aspect of it," Vanessa confirmed, her expression neutral despite the familiar sting of being underestimated. "From initial architecture through implementation and deployment." The room shifted subtly as the Meridian executives reassessed the woman standing before them. James Forsyth straightened in his chair. "Well then," he said, extending his hand to Vanessa, directly this time, "it seems we have much to discuss, Doctor." "Washington, your work is exceptional." As the meeting concluded and contracts were tentatively discussed, Vanessa maintained her professional demeanor. The Meridian team left with promises of moving forward, the $60 million deal all but secured. When the boardroom had emptied of visitors, Marcus approached Vanessa as she packed up her materials. "That was brilliant work, Vanessa. You really saved us today." She looked up at him, allowing the mask to slip just slightly. "I've been saving this company for 3 years, Marcus. Today is just the first time you've noticed." Without waiting for his response, she picked up her tablet and walked out, leaving the CEO standing alone in the boardroom, the weight of her words hanging in the air. As Vanessa rode the elevator down to her office, her phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line read, "Formal apology and incident report. Support call number 78542. She would read it later. Right now, she had more important matters to attend to. The confrontation in the boardroom had crystallized something she'd been considering for months. It was time for changes at Quantum Meridian, systemic, substantive changes, and Dr. Vanessa Washington was precisely the woman to make them happen. Jason Miller sat at his desk in the Technical Support Center, his face buried in his hands. His stomach had been in knots for the past 2 hours, ever since he'd discovered exactly who he had been condescending to on that support call. "You talked down to the CTO," his cubicle mate Derek whispered for the 3rd time, a mixture of horror and morbid fascination in his voice. "Not just any CTO, the woman who literally designed the system." "I know," Jason groaned. "I got the message from Edwin. I have to write a formal apology." "Dude, you're so fired." Jason looked up, his face pale. "You think so?" Derek nodded gravely. "Dr. Washington is a legend in the engineering department. They say she has 3 patents before age 30 and turned down positions at Google and Microsoft to come here." This was news to Jason, who had been with technical support for just 8 months. He'd never even heard her name before today. "Why didn't you tell me who she was when I was on the call with her?" Jason demanded. Derek shrugged. "You had her on speaker, but you didn't mention her name." How was I supposed to know? Jason returned to staring at his blank apology email. The cursor blinked accusingly on his screen. What do I even say? Sorry, I assumed you were clueless about technology because you're a woman. A black woman, Derek corrected quietly. Let's be honest about what happened here. Jason's face flushed. I wasn't being racist. I talk to everyone that way when they call support. Do you, though? Derek challenged. Do you really use that exact same tone with everyone? The question hung in the air between them. Jason opened his mouth to defend himself, then closed it again as uncomfortable realizations began to dawn. Just write the apology, Derek advised, turning back to his own computer, and start updating your resume. Across the open plan office, Edwin Chen watched the exchange from his glass-walled office. The director of technical support had been with Quantum Meridian for 7 years and had never had to deal with a situation quite like this one. His phone rang, displaying a number he recognized immediately. This is Edwin, he answered. Edwin, it's Marcus Kavinsky. We need to talk about what happened today with Dr. Washington. Edwin sighed. I'm already preparing a full incident report, sir. The technician involved will be formally disciplined. This goes beyond one technician, Edwin. The CEO's voice was uncharacteristically serious. I just watched Dr. Washington single-handedly save a $60 million deal after being treated like she didn't belong in her own company. We have a bigger problem here. Edwin leaned back in his chair, gazing out at his predominantly white, predominantly male support team. I understand, sir. Do you? Because I'm not sure I did until today. I want that incident report to include every support call Dr. Washington has ever made to your department. I want to know if this is a pattern. Edwin's stomach tightened. He already knew the answer to that question. And Edwin, Marcus continued, this stays completely confidential for now. Dr. Washington deserves the respect of us handling this properly. Of course, sir. After hanging up, Edwin began the process of pulling call records. As the data started coming in, a pattern emerged that made his blood run cold. Dr. Washington had indeed called support multiple times over the past 3 years. The transcripts showed a consistent pattern of technicians explaining basic concepts to her, interrupting her diagnostic suggestions, and generally treating her with a level of condescension that was absent in calls from her male counterparts. And she had never once pulled rank, never once reminded them who she was. Until today, Edwin wondered what had changed, why today of all days she had finally had enough. As he read through transcript after transcript, he began to understand. It hadn't been one incident. It had been death by 1,000 cuts. His phone buzzed with a calendar notification. Dr. Washington had scheduled a meeting with him for tomorrow morning. Edwin had a feeling things at Quantum Meridian were about to change dramatically. Vanessa unlocked the door to her condo, finally allowing her shoulders to drop from their professional posture. The weight of the day settled around her as she kicked off her heels and padded barefoot to the kitchen. Her phone buzzed again, another email from Marcus Kavinsky. Vanessa, we should discuss today's events. Breakfast tomorrow? Marcus? She set the phone down without replying. Marcus could wait. She needed space to think, to plan her next moves carefully. The Meridian deal was secure. Her technical expertise had overcome both the system failure and the awkward dynamics in the room, but today had forced a confrontation she'd been avoiding for too long. 3 years ago, when Quantum Meridian had recruited her from her research position at MIT, they had promised her the moon, creative control, leadership opportunities, a chance to build something revolutionary from the ground up. And technically they had delivered. She had built the NOVA system, a quantum-secure integration platform that was now the company's flagship product. Her name was on the patents. Her architecture had drawn praise throughout the industry. What they hadn't delivered was respect. Vanessa poured herself a glass of wine and walked to the window overlooking the city. The irony wasn't lost on her, being the technical genius behind a system that even the company's own support staff assumed she couldn't understand. Her phone rang, displaying her sister's name. "Hey, Jazz," she answered, some of the tension leaving her voice. "How'd the big presentation go?" Jasmine asked. Vanessa took a long sip of wine. "We got the deal." "That's amazing. Congratulations." "Thanks," Vanessa replied, her tone not matching the celebratory moment. Her sister, who knew her better than anyone, immediately picked up on it. "What happened?" "Same old story, different day." "Tell me," Jasmine insisted. As Vanessa recounted the incident, with tech support and the subsequent boardroom dynamics, her sister's silence on the other end spoke volumes. "Van," Jasmine finally said when the story was finished, "this has been going on for 3 years. Why do you stay there?" It was a question Vanessa had asked herself countless times. The answer was complex and simple all at once. "Because I built something amazing there," she said quietly, "and I'm not going to let them push me out or make me feel like it isn't mine." "So what are you going to do?" Vanessa turned from the window, her reflection showing a determination that hadn't been there moments before. "I'm going to make them see me," she said, "really see me, all of me. And then I'm going to change things so the next black woman who walks through those doors doesn't have to fight the same battles." After ending the call with her sister, Vanessa opened her laptop and began drafting emails. One to Edwin Chen, requesting every support call transcript involving female executives over the past 3 years. Another to Human Resources, requesting demographic breakdowns of each department. She was done being silent, done accepting the 1,000 daily indignities as the cost of admission to the tech world's elite circles. As she worked late into the night, compiling data and building her case, Vanessa reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The daughter of 2 educators from Baltimore, she had been coding since she was 9 years old. Her parents had sacrificed to send her to the best schools they could afford, always telling her that excellence was the only option. Excellence hadn't been enough, though. Not in a world that saw her blackness and her womanhood before it saw her brilliance. By midnight, her strategy was taking shape. The confrontation in the boardroom had been unplanned, but what came next would be deliberate, strategic, and impossible to ignore. Quantum Meridian had hired Dr. Vanessa Washington for her technical genius. They were about to discover her true power extended far beyond writing code. Edwin Chen arrived at his office the next morning to find a detailed report waiting in his inbox. The security timestamp showed it had been sent at 3:17 a.m. from Dr. Washington's account. The subject line read, "Quantitative Analysis of Gender and Racial Bias in Technical Support Interactions." Edwin's coffee nearly slipped from his hand as he scanned the document. Dr. Washington had somehow obtained and analyzed hundreds of support call transcripts overnight, comparing response times, language patterns, and resolution approaches across different demographics. The data was irrefutable. Female executives waited on average 22% longer for technical support. They were interrupted 3.4 times more frequently than their male counterparts. Technical jargon used by women was simplified in 65% of interactions, compared to just 12% for men. When race was factored in, the disparities grew even more stark. At the end of the report was a simple note: "I'll see you at 9 a.m. as scheduled. Please come prepared to discuss implementation of mandatory bias training for all support staff, as well as revised protocols for technical escalation paths." Dr. Washington, Edwin checked his watch. It was 8:27 a.m. He had barely 30 minutes to prepare for a meeting that now felt less like a discussion and more like a reckoning. His phone rang. Marcus Kavinsky again. "Have you seen it?" the CEO asked without preamble. "Dr. Washington's report? I'm reading it now." "Not just the report," Marcus replied, his voice tense. "Check your email again." Edwin refreshed his inbox and saw a new message that had been sent to the entire executive team. The subject line, "Nova System, complete technical documentation and creator attribution." "She's published the full architectural documentation of the Nova System," Marcus explained unnecessarily, "with extensive notes on who contributed what to each component." Edwin opened the document and understood immediately. The architectural diagrams, decision trees, and implementation notes told a clear story. While dozens of engineers had worked on various components, the core architecture, the brilliant revolutionary parts that had made Nova a market leader, had all come from a single source, Dr. Vanessa Washington, and based on the documentation timestamps, much of it had been created nights and weekends beyond her official working hours. "Why is she doing this now?" Edwin asked. "I think yesterday was her breaking point," Marcus replied. "I tried to talk to her after the Meridian meeting, but she wasn't interested in platitudes." "What do we do?" There was a long pause before Marcus answered. "We listen, we learn, and then we change. Because if we don't, we're going to lose her. And I'm starting to realize that would be the biggest mistake this company could make." At precisely 9 a.m., Vanessa Washington walked into Edwin's office. She was impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, her natural hair styled in a crown of intricate braids. She carried a single tablet and exuded a calm authority that immediately commanded the room. "Good morning, Edwin," she said, taking a seat across from his desk. "I see you've had time to review my analysis." Edwin nodded, trying to match her professional composure. "It's comprehensive and concerning." "It's exactly what I've experienced for 3 years," she replied evenly. "The difference is now we have the data to prove it's not isolated, it's systemic. Dr. Washington, I want you to know that I take full responsibility for the failures in my department. The way you were treated yesterday was completely unacceptable." Vanessa studied him for a moment. "This isn't about one incident, Edwin. It's about a culture that has consistently undervalued and undermined women, particularly women of color, regardless of their expertise or position." She opened her tablet and slid it across the desk to him. On the screen was a detailed proposal titled Equity and Inclusion Initiative, Technical Division Reforms. "I've outlined specific changes that need to be implemented immediately," she continued. "Bias training is just the beginning. We need structural changes in how support tickets are assigned and escalated. We need demographic metrics for response times and satisfaction scores, and we need consequences for repeated patterns of discriminatory behavior." Edwin scanned the document, impressed despite his discomfort with the situation. The proposals were thorough, practical, and measurable. "This is very detailed," he managed. "I've had 3 years to think about it," Vanessa replied simply. Before Edwin could respond, his office door opened and Marcus Kavinsky walked in without knocking. "I hope I'm not interrupting," the CEO said, though his tone made it clear he didn't care if he was. "Marcus," Vanessa acknowledged with a slight nod, neither standing nor offering her hand. "I read your reports," Marcus said, taking the seat beside her uninvited. "Both of them. You've been busy." "I've been busy for 3 years," she corrected him. "You're just noticing now." The CEO had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Vanessa, I owe you an apology. Several, actually. But rather than offer words, I'd prefer to take action." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document, placing it on the desk between them. "What's this?" she asked, making no move to take it. "A promotion. New title. Executive Vice President of Technology and Innovation. Direct reporting line to me. Budget authority for your division. And a compensation package that reflects your actual value to this company." Vanessa didn't touch the paper. "And if I don't want it?" Marcus blinked, clearly not expecting that response. "It's a significant advancement, 30% increase in compensation, plus equity options." "That's not what I asked," Vanessa said quietly. "I asked what happens if I don't want it." The room fell silent as Marcus struggled to understand what was happening. In his world, bigger titles and more money solved most problems. "I don't understand," he finally admitted. "Clearly," Vanessa agreed. "Let me be direct, Marcus. I didn't compile those reports and documentation to negotiate a better title. I did it because this company has a fundamental problem with recognizing and respecting the contributions of women and people of color, especially when they're the same person." She gestured to the proposal on Edwin's desk. "What I want is structural change, comprehensive bias training, mentorship programs, recruiting overhauls, transparent compensation reviews across gender and racial lines." Her eyes locked with Marcus's. "I want to ensure that the next brilliant black woman you hire doesn't have to work 3 times as hard to receive half the recognition, that she isn't talked down to by support staff about systems she designed, that her expertise isn't questioned in every meeting while men with half her credentials are taken at their word." The CEO shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "These are complex issues, Vanessa. They can't be solved overnight." "I'm well aware. That's why my proposal includes phased implementation over 18 months with clear metrics for success at each stage." She leaned forward slightly. "But it starts today with your full commitment. Otherwise, that promotion is meaningless." Marcus glanced at Edwin, who had remained silent throughout the exchange. The director of technical support gave a small nod, his expression making it clear he supported Dr. Washington's position. "All right," Marcus said finally. "You have my commitment. We'll implement your proposals, starting today." Vanessa studied his face, searching for sincerity. What she saw apparently satisfied her because she finally reached for the promotion document. "In that case, I accept the new position," she said, her tone softening slightly. "But understand this, Marcus. I'll be holding you to that commitment, not just for myself, but for everyone who comes after me." As the meeting concluded and plans were made for company-wide announcements, none of them fully realized the extent of the transformation they had just set in motion, or how completely it would reshape quantum meridian systems in the months to come. 3 months later, Jason Miller sat nervously in the small conference room, waiting for his quarterly review. The changes at Quantum Meridian had been swift and far-reaching since that fateful support call with Dr. Washington. Every technical support staff member had gone through intensive bias training. Call transcripts were now regularly audited for patterns of condescension or dismissiveness. Response protocols had been completely overhauled. Jason had survived the initial fallout, largely because Dr. Washington had insisted on education rather than punishment. His formal apology had been accepted with a grace he knew he hadn't deserved. The door opened, and instead of his direct supervisor, Dr. Washington herself walked in. "Dr. Washington," he stammered, rising quickly. "I didn't expect—" "Please, sit down, Jason," she said, her tone professional but not unkind. "I make it a point to personally follow up on situations that lead to significant organizational changes." She took a seat across from him, setting a tablet on the table between them. "How have the past 3 months been for you?" she asked directly. Jason swallowed hard. "Enlightening," he admitted. "The training programs, they made me see things I hadn't noticed before. patterns in my own behavior that I am not proud of. Vanessa nodded, studying him thoughtfully. Self-awareness is the first step. What changes have you implemented in your support approach? I've completely reworked my initial response protocols, he explained, gaining confidence as he discussed the technical aspects. I start by assuming technical competence from all callers, ask clarifying questions rather than making assumptions, and focus on active listening before suggesting solutions. And have you found these changes effective? Jason nodded enthusiastically. Our resolution times have actually improved, and our satisfaction scores are up 22% this quarter. It turns out that respecting people's knowledge leads to better outcomes. Who knew? He winced immediately at his attempt at humor. To his surprise, Doctor. Washington smiled slightly. Indeed, respect is remarkably efficient. She tapped her tablet, bringing up his performance metrics. Your personal improvement has been noted, Jason. Your last 15 calls show consistent application of the new protocols, even in challenging situations. Thank you, he said, relief evident in his voice. I've been working hard to change my approach. Why? Vanessa asked suddenly, her direct gaze making it clear she wanted more than a superficial answer. Jason took a moment to consider his response. Initially, honestly, it was fear. I thought I was going to be fired, but then... He paused, organizing his thoughts. Then I started recognizing how many assumptions I was making about callers based on their voices, their names, their language patterns. It was uncomfortable to face that about myself. I've always thought of myself as a good person, you know? Not biased or prejudiced. Vanessa remained silent, allowing him to continue. The training helped me see that being a good person isn't enough if I'm not actively working to recognize and counter those unconscious biases. Now I'm doing this work because I want to be better, not just to keep my job, but because it's the right thing to do. Dr. Washington studied him for a long moment before nodding. That's a good answer, Jason. An honest one. She stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Your position here is secure, provided you continue on this path, and there may be opportunities for advancement in the restructured department if you're interested. We're creating a specialized escalation team for complex technical issues, and your background in network security could be valuable there. Jason stood, surprised by this unexpected opening. I would definitely be interested in that. Good. Speak with Edwin about it next week. She moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Jason. Yes, Dr. Washington. The changes happening at Quantum Meridian aren't just about making people feel better. They're about recognizing and utilizing the full talent of our entire workforce. When we dismiss people based on what they look like or how they sound, we lose their potential contributions. That hurts everyone. With that, she left the room, leaving Jason with a new perspective on exactly what these changes meant, not just for individuals like him, but for the company as a whole. 6 months after the incident in the boardroom, Quantum Meridian Systems hosted its annual technology conference. The main auditorium was packed with industry leaders, technology journalists, and potential clients, all eager to see the latest innovations from the company that had been making headlines not just for its technological advancements, but for its revolutionary approach to equity and inclusion in the tech space. Behind the stage, Marcus Kavinsky adjusted his tie nervously. Are you sure about this? He asked the woman beside him. Dr. Vanessa Washington nodded confidently. Absolutely. It's time. The lights dimmed and Marcus walked onto the stage to enthusiastic applause. He welcomed the attendees briefly before turning to the real purpose of the keynote. For too long, the technology industry has failed to recognize and celebrate the diverse talents that drive our most important innovations, he began. At Quantum Meridian, we're changing that narrative, starting with acknowledging the brilliant minds behind our groundbreaking products. He gestured to the side of the stage. It is my privilege to introduce the true visionary behind our Nova Quantum Integration System, the architect whose genius has transformed this company and this industry. Our Executive Vice President of Technology and Innovation, Dr. Vanessa Washington. The applause as Vanessa walked onto the stage was thunderous. In the front row, her sister Jasmine beamed with pride. "Thank you, Marcus," Vanessa said as she took center stage. The CEO nodded respectfully and moved to the side, giving her the spotlight completely. For the next hour, Dr. Washington led the audience through the technical innovations that had made Nova a market leader. Her command of the material was absolute, her presentation style engaging even when discussing complex quantum algorithms and security protocols. Throughout the auditorium, faces that had been skeptical at first grew increasingly impressed as they realized they were witnessing true technical brilliance. In the back of the hall, Edwin Chen stood with several members of his support team, including Jason Miller. They watched as Dr. Washington fielded complex technical questions with ease, never once talking down to audience members regardless of the simplicity or complexity of their queries. "That's how it's done," Edwin said quietly to his team. "Respect the question, respect the person asking it, share knowledge without condescension." As the presentation concluded, the standing ovation lasted nearly 2 minutes. Journalists were already typing frantically on their laptops, and social media was buzzing with clips from the keynote. Backstage, Vanessa was greeted by her sister with a fierce hug. "You killed it out there," Jasmine said proudly. "Thanks, Jazz," Vanessa replied, the professional mask slipping now that she was away from the public eye. "It feels good to finally be recognized for what I've built." "Dr. Washington," a voice interrupted. They turned to see James Forsyth, the Meridian CTO, who had been so dismissive during their initial meeting 6 months ago. "Mr. Forsyth," Vanessa acknowledged professionally. The older man looked distinctly uncomfortable. "I owe you an apology," he said directly. "During our first meeting, I failed to recognize your expertise and role in creating the system we've now implemented across our entire operation." Vanessa studied him for a moment before responding. "Apology accepted, James. How is the implementation going?" Relief crossed his face at her professional response. "Extraordinarily well. In fact, that's partly why I wanted to speak with you. Our security team has identified some potential optimizations in the encryption layer that I'd like to discuss, if you have time in the coming weeks." "Of course," Vanessa replied. "Have your team send over the preliminary findings, and we'll schedule a technical review session." "Thank you, Dr. Washington." He handed her his business card. "My direct line is on there. No more going through intermediaries." As Forsyth walked away, Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "Was that the same man who wouldn't even look at you 6 months ago?" "The very same," Vanessa confirmed with a small smile. "Change is possible, Jazz. Sometimes people just need their perspectives forcibly adjusted." Marcus approached, practically glowing with the keynote's success. "Vanessa, that was brilliant. The social media response is overwhelming, and 3 potential clients have already requested meetings." "Good," she replied. "But remember, Marcus, this isn't just about one presentation or one person. This is about systematic change." The CEO nodded seriously. "I know, and speaking of which, the board has unanimously approved the full diversity and inclusion initiative you proposed. Full funding, executive support, everything you asked for." For the first time that day, genuine surprise registered on Vanessa's face. The full proposal? Including the STEM scholarship program for girls of color? Especially that part, Marcus confirmed. In fact, the board would like to name it after you, the doctor, Vanessa Washington Technical Excellence Scholarship. Vanessa shook her head. Name it after my mother, Dr. Eleanor Washington. She taught high school mathematics for 30 years while facing the same biases I've encountered. She's the reason I believed I belonged in this field, even when everyone else suggested otherwise. Marcus nodded, understanding the significance of the request. I'll make it happen. As the backstage area filled with well-wishers and industry leaders eager to speak with her, Vanessa took a moment to observe the scene around her. 6 months ago, many of these same people had looked past her, through her, or down at her. Now they were lining up for a chance at her attention. The transformation wasn't just about her position or title. It was about making her brilliance impossible to ignore, her authority impossible to dismiss. Later that evening, after the crowds had dispersed and the formal events had ended, Vanessa found herself alone in her office, looking out at the city lights. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. So proud of you today. Mom and Dad would have been bursting with pride. Vanessa smiled at the mention of her parents, both gone now but forever present in the values that guided her actions. Her father's voice seemed to echo in her mind. Excellence isn't just about what you achieve, Vanessa. It's about clearing the path for those who come after you. A knock at her office door interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see a young black woman standing hesitantly at the threshold, one of the new software engineers hired under the Expanded Diversity Initiative. Dr. Washington, I'm sorry to disturb you. I just wanted to say that your keynote today meant so much to me. Seeing you on that stage. The young woman's voice faltered slightly with emotion. Come in, Zora, Vanessa said, recognizing her from the orientation sessions. And thank you. That means a lot to me. The young engineer stepped into the office, her posture betraying her nervousness at addressing the now legendary EVP directly. I've followed your work since your MIT research papers, Zora admitted. When I heard you were leading technology here, it's why I applied. But today, watching you command that room full of tech leaders, she shook her head in admiration. It made me believe I could do it too someday. Vanessa studied the younger woman thoughtfully. You can, and you will, but hopefully with fewer battles along the way. Is that possible in this industry? Zora asked, a hint of skepticism in her voice. It's becoming possible here, Vanessa replied. That's the whole point of everything we've implemented over the past 6 months. Not just to correct past wrongs, but to create a different future. She walked to her bookshelf and selected a technical volume on quantum algorithms. I'm starting a weekly technical discussion group for women in our engineering division. Nothing formal, just a space to share ideas and collaborate outside the usual power dynamics. Our first meeting is Wednesday evening. You should join us. Zora accepted the book with something approaching reverence. I'd be honored, Dr. Washington. Vanessa, she corrected with a warm smile. In that space, we're just colleagues exploring ideas together. After Zora left, Vanessa turned back to the window, reflecting on the distance traveled in 6 months. The company had changed, not perfectly, not completely, but meaningfully. New hiring practices, mentorship programs, bias training, accountability metrics, and most importantly, a growing culture that valued expertise, regardless of its packaging. Her phone buzzed again, an email from Edwin Chen with the quarterly bias audit results, showing continued improvement across all technical support metrics. Female executives now received equal response times and fewer interruptions. Technical jargon was no longer simplified based on gender or race. Progress, measurable and real. As she gathered her things to leave for the night, Vanessa thought about the tech support call that had started it all 6 months ago. That moment of being talked down to about a system she had created had been a breaking point, the final indignity that had catalyzed action after years of silent endurance. Sometimes it took a breaking point to create a breakthrough. 1 year to the day after the incident in the boardroom, Quantum Meridian Systems was featured on the cover of Technology Today magazine. The headline read, "The Diversity Revolution: How One Company's Transformation is Changing Tech Culture." The article detailed the company's remarkable 18 months, record profits, groundbreaking innovations, industry-leading retention rates, and a talent pipeline that was the envy of Silicon Valley. But more significantly, it highlighted the structural changes that had made Quantum Meridian a new model for the industry. In the main conference room, the executive team had gathered to celebrate the coverage. The room looked different now. More diverse faces around the table, more varied perspectives contributing to decisions. Marcus Kavinsky raised a glass in toast. "To transformation," he said, his gaze moving respectfully to Vanessa and to the woman who made it possible by refusing to be invisible. "I'll drink to transformation," Vanessa agreed, raising her own glass. But this wasn't the work of one person. This was about an organization finally willing to see its blind spots and address them systematically. After the toast, as conversations broke into smaller groups, Edwin Chen approached Vanessa with a tablet in hand. "You might find this interesting," he said, showing her a graph. "These are our support call metrics for the past year. Response times, resolution rates, and customer satisfaction scores, all broken down by caller demographics." Vanessa studied the data with her characteristic thoroughness. The trend lines showed clear convergence. What had once been dramatic disparities in service quality based on gender and race had steadily equalized over the months. "This is significant progress, Edwin. Well done." He shook his head. "It's your framework that made it possible, the quarterly audits, the anonymous feedback channels, the consequent structure for repeated bias incidents. They've transformed how we operate." "And Jason Miller?" Vanessa asked, remembering the tech support agent from the original incident. "How is he doing in the specialized escalation team?" Edwin smiled. "He's become one of our strongest advocates for the new protocols. Actually leads training sessions now on recognizing and countering bias in technical communications." "People can change when the systems around them demand it," Vanessa observed. "Individual growth follows structural reform." As the celebration continued, Vanessa slipped away to her office for a moment of quiet reflection. On her desk sat a framed email, the condescending response from tech support a year earlier that had sparked the entire transformation. She kept it as a reminder of both how far they had come and how vigilant they needed to remain. Her phone rang, a video call from Jasmine. "Did you see the magazine cover?" her sister asked immediately. "I did," Vanessa confirmed. "It's good coverage." "Good coverage? Van, they're literally calling you a revolutionary. Mom and Dad would be doing cartwheels." Vanessa laughed at the image. "Well, maybe not cartwheels at their age." "You know what I mean," Jasmine insisted. "You didn't just succeed in that world, you changed it. That's what they always hoped for." "It's a start," Vanessa acknowledged, her natural pragmatism tempering the moment. "One company in an industry with deep-rooted problems, but it's a model that others are starting to notice and replicate." "And how are you doing? Really?" Vanessa considered the question, looking out at the company she had helped transform. "I'm good, Jazz. For the first time since I joined this company, I feel fully seen. Not just my technical abilities, but all of me." "No more mansplaining about systems you designed," Jasmine teased. "Not if they want to keep their jobs," Vanessa replied with a small smile. After ending the call, Vanessa returned to the celebration, where Marcus was preparing to make another announcement. The room quieted as he took his center stage. While we're celebrating today's recognition, I have one more piece of news to share, the CEO began. After careful consideration, the board has unanimously approved a significant reorganization of our executive leadership. Murmurs rippled through the room as people exchanged curious glances. Effective next month, I will be transitioning to the role of executive chairman, focusing on external partnerships and strategic direction. He paused, his gaze finding Vanessa in the crowd. And it is my profound honor to announce that Dr. Vanessa Washington will be assuming the role of Chief Executive Officer of Quantum Meridian Systems. The room erupted in applause and surprised exclamations. Vanessa herself stood motionless for a moment, genuinely caught off guard by the announcement. This hadn't been part of her strategy or demands. Marcus approached her, microphone still in hand. "I know we didn't discuss this beforehand," he said, his voice now just between them, though still amplified for the room. "But the board and I agreed. There is no one better positioned to lead this company into its next chapter. Your technical brilliance built our products, and your moral compass has rebuilt our culture. Quantum Meridian needs you at the helm." He offered her the microphone. After a moment's consideration, Vanessa accepted it and stepped forward. "Thank you, Marcus, and thank you to the board for this unexpected vote of confidence." Her composed exterior revealed none of the emotions churning beneath the surface. "I accept this position with a clear understanding of both the responsibility and the opportunity it represents." She surveyed the room, making eye contact with familiar faces: Edwin Chen, who had transformed technical support; Zora Johnson, the young engineer who now led a promising quantum security team; Jason Miller, whose journey from bias to advocacy exemplified the company's transformation. "A year ago, I was talked down to about a system I designed," she continued, her voice steady and strong. "That moment crystallized what many of us experience daily in this industry: the assumption that we don't belong, don't understand, don't deserve a seat at the table." The room was utterly silent now, everyone hanging on her words. What's happened at Quantum Meridian since then isn't just about one person being recognized or promoted. It's about building systems that recognize and reward excellence regardless of what package it comes in. It's about creating a culture where brilliance isn't overlooked because it doesn't match preconceived notions of what a tech leader looks like. She paused, allowing her gaze to move across the diverse faces now represented in the company's leadership. "As CEO, my priority will be continuing this transformation, not just within our walls, but across our industry. We've proven that diversity and inclusion aren't just moral imperatives, but business advantages. Our numbers speak for themselves. Record innovation, record profits, record retention." Her voice took on additional gravity as she concluded. "The tech industry has long been dominated by a narrow set of perspectives. That changes starting here, starting now. Quantum Meridian will lead by example, showing that when everyone's brilliance is recognized and respected, we all move forward faster." The applause that followed was deafening, a standing ovation that reflected not just respect for her individual journey, but commitment to the collective transformation she represented. As Vanessa accepted congratulations and fielded questions about her vision for the company's future, she caught sight of a familiar face at the back of the room: the Meridian CTO, James Forsyth, who had been invited as a key client. She excused herself from the conversation and made her way to him. "James," she greeted him, "I didn't know you'd be here today." "Marcus invited me," he explained. "Said there would be a big announcement. I had no idea it would be this significant." He extended his hand. Congratulations, CEO Washington, a well-deserved promotion. Vanessa accepted the handshake, noting how different this interaction felt from their first meeting a year earlier. The respect in his eyes, the absence of condescension in his tone. Thank you, James. I trust our companies will continue to collaborate successfully in this new chapter. Without question, he assured her. In fact, I've been meaning to tell you. We've implemented several elements of your inclusion framework at Meridian. Our early results show similar improvements in innovation and retention. Vanessa raised an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. You've adopted our framework? James nodded, looking slightly embarrassed. After witnessing the transformation here, and honestly, after recognizing my own biases in our initial interactions, I became an advocate for similar changes at Meridian. Your model provided a roadmap. That's unexpected but welcome news, Vanessa acknowledged. The ripples from what you've built here are spreading, Dr. Washington, James said seriously. More companies are taking notice. The industry is watching. As the celebration continued around them, Vanessa considered the implications of his words. What had begun as a moment of personal indignity, being talked down to about a system she had designed, had catalyzed changes that were now extending beyond Quantum Meridian's walls. The tech support call that day had been a breaking point, but it had broken something that needed breaking. The silent acceptance of systemic bias that had limited not just her potential, but the potential of countless others like her. In its place, something new was growing, something stronger, more inclusive, and ultimately more innovative. 2 years after the incident in the boardroom, Dr. Vanessa Washington stood on the stage at the National Technology Awards, accepting the Industry Transformation Award on behalf of Quantum Meridian Systems. The audience of technology leaders, investors, and innovators represented the most influential figures in the industry. Many of them had initially dismissed Quantum Meridian's diversity initiatives as PR stunts or politically motivated distractions. Now they sat in rapt attention as the company's unprecedented success had made it impossible to ignore the connection between inclusion and innovation. Technology has always been about solving problems, Vanessa began, her voice confident and measured. But we cannot solve problems we refuse to see. 2 years ago, Quantum Meridian confronted a problem that pervades our industry: the systematic undervaluing of contributions from women and people of color. The audience shifted uncomfortably, but she continued without hesitation. We addressed this not with empty promises or token gestures, but with structural reforms, measurable goals, and real accountability. The results speak for themselves. 47 new patents, market valuation tripled, talent retention up 62%, and the most diverse leadership team in enterprise technology. She held up the award, its crystal surface catching the stage lights. This recognition belongs to every person at Quantum Meridian who embraced change, even when it was uncomfortable, to every team member who learned to recognize brilliance regardless of its packaging, and to our clients and partners who supported our transformation journey. Vanessa paused, her gaze sweeping across the audience. But this award also represents a challenge to our entire industry. The biases we've confronted at Quantum Meridian aren't unique to our company. They're woven into the fabric of tech culture. The question isn't whether these biases exist in your organizations. They do. The question is what you're going to do about them. Her voice took on additional authority as she delivered her final points. We've published our framework, our metrics, and our results. The roadmap is available to any company willing to undertake this journey. The business case is irrefutable. The moral imperative is clear. She held the award aloft one final time. The future of technology will be built by all of us, not just some of us. And companies that fail to recognize and nurture brilliance in all its forms will simply be left behind. Thank you. The standing ovation lasted nearly 3 minutes, led by Jasmine in the front row and spreading throughout the hall as the industry's most powerful figures recognized the gauntlet that had been thrown down. Backstage after the ceremony, Vanessa was approached by a group of young women, recent graduates from the scholarship program named after her mother. Dr. Washington, one of them said, "We just wanted to thank you personally. Your example and the pathway you've created have made it possible for us to pursue careers we might otherwise have abandoned." Vanessa embraced each of them in turn. "The pathway gets wider with each of you who walks it," she told them. "Your success will create space for those who come after you, just as others created space for me." As the graduates moved on, Marcus Kavinsky approached, now comfortable in his role as executive chairman. "Powerful speech," he noted, "though I suspect some of our competitors are less than thrilled to have their biases called out so directly." Vanessa shrugged slightly. "Discomfort precedes change. They'll adapt or they'll fall behind." Marcus nodded, having learned this lesson himself over the past 2 years. "The board meeting went well this morning," he reported. "Unanimous approval for the global expansion of the scholarship program and green light for the Technology Center in Baltimore." The Baltimore project was especially meaningful to Vanessa, a state-of-the-art research and education center in her hometown, focused on bringing technology opportunities to underserved communities. "That's excellent news," she replied. "We'll break ground next quarter." As they discussed the details, Vanessa's phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced down to see a news alert announcing another major tech company had adopted a framework virtually identical to Quantum Meridian's inclusion initiative. She showed the screen to Marcus with a small smile. "The dominoes continue to fall." "Because you pushed the first one," he reminded her. "That day in the boardroom when you refused to accept being diminished, that was the catalyst for all of this." Vanessa considered his words thoughtfully. "Maybe. But it wasn't just about me standing up for myself. It was about creating systems that make standing up unnecessary, because respect is the default." Later that evening at the after-party celebration, Vanessa found a quiet moment to call her sister. "The speech was perfect," Jasmine said immediately. "Mom would have cried." "Dad would have pretended not to," Vanessa added with a smile, while secretly wiping his eyes behind his glasses. They shared a moment of comfortable silence, both thinking of their parents and the values they had instilled. "I was thinking today about something Dad used to say," Jasmine mused, "about how real change happens. Systems only change when staying the same becomes more painful than transformation," Vanessa quoted. "Exactly. You made it painful for Quantum Meridian to stay the same, and now you're making it painful for the entire industry." Vanessa laughed softly. "I'm not sure that's how I'd phrase it in a press release, but essentially, yes." After ending the call, Vanessa rejoined the celebration, moving through conversations with industry leaders, many of whom had once dismissed or underestimated her. Now they sought her insights, her approval, her partnership. The transformation wasn't complete, not at Quantum Meridian, and certainly not across the industry. Bias and discrimination remained stubborn adversaries. But systems were changing, perspectives were shifting, and opportunities were opening that had once been firmly closed. And it had all begun with a tech support call, a moment when someone had talked down to her about a system she had designed, a breaking point that had become a breakthrough, as Vanessa Washington, CEO of Quantum Meridian Systems and newly minted Industry Transformation Award winner, looked out at the room full of technology's most powerful figures. She allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The woman they had once failed to see was now impossible to ignore. Have you ever been underestimated, overlooked, or talked down to because of how you look? The story of Dr. Vanessa Washington reminds us that sometimes the most powerful response isn't an immediate reaction, but a strategic transformation that makes such treatment impossible to continue. When that tech support agent condescendingly explained basic concepts about a system she had designed, Vanessa could have simply pulled rank immediately. Instead, she recognized a symptom of a much deeper problem and addressed the root causes rather than just the surface manifestation. The changes she implemented didn't just benefit her, they created space for others who had been similarly marginalized, transforming an entire company culture and eventually influencing an industry. What would happen if we all approached moments of discrimination, not just as personal affronts, but as opportunities to create systemic change? What structures in your workplace, community, or industry need similar transformation? Remember, true change isn't just about individual recognition. It's about building systems where brilliance is recognized regardless of its packaging, where respect is the default, not the exception. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear that their expertise matters, their contributions are valuable, and their presence is essential, regardless of who tries to diminish them. Because sometimes the person being talked down to today is the same person who will transform the entire system tomorrow. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of justice served, systems transformed, and dignity affirmed. Because everyone deserves to be seen for who they truly are, especially when they've designed the entire system.